Relief Naturally, a podcast.
What's up, guys? Welcome back to Relief Naturally. I am your host, Chris Bailey, and today we'll be discussing Jack Flash. Now, this strain right here, I judge this one simply by its. I judge this one simply by its name, thinking that it was a sativa strain. But turns out this is more of a hybrid strain. After doing research for the podcast on this, because I'm not gonna lie here, I bought this on the whim because it was on the value strain list for the day of the dispensary I go to, and I was like, I haven't tried that one, and it will be great to do it for the podcast. So it was a no-brainer for me. And not that I steer away from doing indica or sativas over indicas. I just prefer sativas over indicas because I use medical marijuana for mostly to get me energized and to get me going for the day, because I deal with depression and anxiety, and my depression and anxiety typically they keep me from wanting to be creative and not be active and have no motivation whatsoever. So I rely on sativa blends to kind of give me that umph. And smoking in general makes me more sociable, so I feel that I like a social me. I can be social naturally, but because of my depression and anxiety, it kind of keeps me bottled inwards, and I stay bottled up, and I become, I guess, kind of an introvert in a way. And I'm not naturally an introvert by any stretch of the imagination. I'm I can be outgoing. I like to try new things, but I am weird around new people. The people have to grow on me for me to open up. So, but once I'm growing on you and open up, like, I'm almost like a completely different person in a lot of ways. But anyways, back to Jack Flash, which is why you guys are listening to this episode. I judged this strictly by the name. I was like, Jack Flash, yeah, it's gonna be like, I'm gonna have energy like the Flash, maybe. Anyways, I'm gonna read off some descriptions like normal of this strain, and we'll go over some reviews on leafly.com. Again, as always, I will be reading descriptions and grow information from weedmaps.com, and then secondarily, we'll be reading a description and written reviews from leafly.com. So, weedmaps.com describes this blend as, well, it states here, Jack Flash was created by the cannabis breeder Cincy Seeds, which set out to improve on the legendary Jack Herer by creating a hybrid that combined these powerful genes with highly sought-after growing attributes of a skunk. In this case, the breeder mixed Jack Herer female with Cincy Super Skunk and Haze to produce a trinome-rich buds, high in THC, low in CBD, according to Amsterdam Seed Center. This strain won third place and for Best Cannabis in 2004's High Times Cannabis Cup in Amsterdam. And Jack Herer, as mentioned in that description, is another weed strain. This is one I have not tried, and it's one I've actually been looking at trying just because I've been hearing it throughout the course of doing this podcast, and it seems right up my alley to do a not compare and contrast, Not even really a review, just my thoughts on the strain, because that's what this podcast is. It's about medical marijuana, what it does for me, and what these strains effectively do for me. Top effects for this are happy, euphoric, and relaxed, which all those are. I don't know about euphoric. When one says, when these read off for the top effects as euphoric, none of them really are euphoric for me. Maybe I've never really had a euphoric experience, because when I think euphoric, and this just comes from my intake of stuff, is when I hear euphoric, I automatically think Pulp Fiction, and when Vincent Vega, who's played by John Travolta in that movie, does heroin, he gets like in a euphoric state. And that's my kind of thought process about euphoria, which I guess it's subjective. It's what everyone has a different take on it. But maybe I am getting euphoric effects from cannabis, and honestly, I just don't know their euphoric experiences or effects in that aspect. Top reported flavors are citrus, coffee, and earthy, which is earthy is usually always a given. I didn't really get the citrus taste, but I got a coffee ground taste, I'll say, and that's kind of where the coffee, I think, comes from when they say for top flavors. Though when I first smelt this, I did get a citrus vibe from it, but definitely more earthy and coffee in my taste. Some grow information is Jack Flash is reportedly easy to grow, vigorously growing swollen calyxes. Excuse me if I butchered that, and sorry for the pause. I just had to think about this word for a second. Calyxes that are stacked upon one another and heavily coated with resin, and an 8 to 9 week flowering cycle. According to Cincy Seeds, Jack Flash produces a very large yields when growing indoors or in a warm, sunny outdoor environment. The strain reportedly has two phenotypes: the indica and a short and compact. The indica is short and compact enough to be compatible with the Sea of the Green cultivation technique, which I have no idea what that is. So this is actually my first time ever hearing about this. So I actually don't know what Sea of Green cultivation technique is. It's probably something I'll need to look further into. The sativa phenome is preferred by the breeder as it grows up to 1 meter or 3.3 feet or taller, carrying many of the skunk and haze attributes, including strong fragrance, copious amounts of resin, and more sizable yield overall. And that was from weedmaps.com. Going on over to Leafly, they list this as hybrid as well, with again, happy, uplifting, euphoric for the top effects, and they describe the strain as: to create Jack Flash, Cincy Seeds started out with their Jack Hare's gene pool and then crossed it with Super Skunk and Haze, which I guess Cincy Seed is also responsible for Jack Hare as well, according to this at least. Jack Flash offers an earthy citrus aroma, impressive yield, and the attractive cerebral legacy of her Jack Hare parent. This hybrid gets its name from its lightning-fast onset, which may prove useful for patients needing immediate symptom relief, which I don't remember it being instantaneous, but definitely I would rate it among, I'd have to say, as far as recent, with the last episode, Tangelope, I would say the high came on at similar amounts of times. Again, I wasn't timing how long it is. Might be something I need to start doing in the future for the podcast, just kind of rating when, or not rating, but timing out when the high actually starts taking full effect, or maybe little, or the effect starts and then goes full effect in so much amount of time. On to some reviews. We're gonna go with the very first one right here. This was given 4 stars. Again, we don't know the reviewer's name because Leafly does not provide the names of the people reviewing, but they give it a 4-star review. And their top effects for this were energetic, euphoric, focused, and giggly. And this was written June 2nd of 2014. So it's a little bit old, but nonetheless, it's probably still very accurate to today's. But here's the review. Went in to pick up Jack Hare and came out with Jack Flash. It gives a productive high. Nice in the morning with your coffee. Energetic, focus, and lots of smiling, laughing. I've heard there's 2 versions. This is a sativa dominant strain and it's wonderful. I am actually glad they were out of Jack Hare. Jack Flash has made my top 10. I'll be taking him to the beach next week. He'll make funner, which I feel like they misspelt it because they didn't have an I in it, but I could be wrong, and I don't think funner is a word anyways. He should have said he'll make the experience more fun or something along those lines. But again, I went in not knowing, because I didn't even read it. I read off the name. I was like, okay, that sounds like a very, the name alone caught my eye, and I think the name is just the name's on par with the effects that it gives you. The name is just kind of perfect for what this does, even it being a hybrid. And the name kind of suggests that it's a hybrid now after reading more about the description, because it's from Jack Hare, but it's, was bred for more sativa dominant, and hence why it's a hybrid. So the name's just kind of perfect for this. And I will say it has given me energy. It's made me focus. Gave me energy and focus to actually write this, or not write, but do a podcast on this. Not to say that I would need any type of cannabis to do this podcast, but the podcast is based around cannabis and my usage of it and my experience. So it's kind of the niche behind it. I'm gonna go and see if I can find maybe a more recent review. If it pulls up, we'll just see. Which it doesn't seem like. It seems like the newest. Oh God, excuse me. Oh my gosh. Like a little more reviews than I want to sift through, because it's like 33 pages. But here's one from April 3rd of 2017. It's the most recent I can find without having to scour for probably an hour or so. But this one was given a 5-star review, and some of the effects that this reviewer gave it was creative, energetic, focused, and relaxed. And it starts out with nausea started kicking in hard, with the migraine not too far away. I was fully prepared to go take a nap, but decided to medicate first with some Jack Flash. I got out my rig and did a couple dabs. As I walked back into the kitchen, I saw all the dirty dishes I had planned to put off until later when I was feeling better, and suddenly I found myself washing them. The effects were almost immediate. Nausea was 1,000 times better. The migraine held off. I also had the bonus of a little extra motivation and some creativity. And again, this person reports it almost being immediately. Now, I may have not noticed the immediateness, because again, I wasn't really looking out for it. Sometimes things happen to you, and if you're not looking out for them, you don't know they actually happen. I'll have to look back on this, or actually when I go and try this strain once again, I will gonna keep my eye out for how immediate the high is, and I'll definitely report back on that probably in the next podcast, in like the second part where I go, or maybe even in the beginning. It just depends, we're kind of all over the place here. We don't really go structure. Well, there's a little bit of structure, but it's really, most of this is off the cuff, off the top of my head, and it's just me reading already information that I provide sources for anyways. But I give my opinion and take on a lot of this stuff. And a lot of people are saying it's almost immediate. I did not see almost an immediateness, but then again, I wasn't looking out for it. That's something I'll probably be looking out for in the future, honestly, just because it came up. But, I'm glad to see that at least for some people, this might help with nausea. I can't even remember the last time I was nauseous. Usually actually I do. Last time I think I had nausea was the last time I had alcohol, which was on my birthday, like probably 2 or 3 years ago now, because I haven't celebrated with alcohol on my birthday in like 2 or 3 years, it feels like now. And that's probably honestly the last time I've had nausea is from getting drunk. And those were times before I was using medical marijuana. But I can definitely say it gets you motivated, and as far as creativity, wanting to create, for me, doing the podcast, content creation right there takes both those, motivation and creativity. So if you're needing something to help with nausea, but not maybe knock you on your feet, Jack Flash is probably a strain you should try. But again, I thought this was like a purely sativa dominant. Didn't realize it was a hybrid. Went off the name, and the name is just perfect for it after reading more into this. I'm very glad I picked up this strain. The strain for a while was like always on the value strain menu of the dispensary I go to. And that kind of, it didn't steer me away from buying it, but I was all like, there's always like the strains I have done for the podcast before were more of priorities that I wanted to do over this strain, because of the sheer fact that it felt like it was just readily available, and the other ones weren't always readily available. They were in, and they were ones I noticed hadn't been on in the menu in a while, so I would go and scoop up some for the podcast so I could do them for the podcast and bring that content to you. And the Jack Flash was one that was always there. And again, it was there when I went to purchase this strain for the podcast and do it today. So it's one that's always been readily available, which is why I kind of, in a lot of ways, put it in on the back burner, because I knew I could readily have it available and use it for an episode of the podcast, which this has been an episode I've been wanting to do, but like I just kind of been putting it back on the back burner, like I said, and until I guess I really needed a strain to review. Not that there's any stretch of the imagination of strains out there that I have not reviewed, because there's a whole bunch. There's a whole bunch I'll be getting to, and there's a whole other, like, dabs and stuff. I haven't dealt with dabs. I use cartridges, vape cartridges, which I'm going to be doing reviews on as well. I'm using cartridges right now, like, in kind of limited aspect, though. No, I don't use them all the time. I use them when I can't spark up some flour, basically. I use a vape, a cartridge for kind of on the go, and I can use kind of if I'm not driving or anything, if it's kind of on the go and not needing to drive, like I said, not drive or do anything very, I guess it'd be something I would use if I was like going downtown where I live, and they have tracks and stuff you can do. You can walk, run, bike, etc. So I'll go there and I'll either run or I'll go walk, and I'll take a couple hits of the cartridge pen and go do a walk or a run and kind of sit back and enjoy the riverfront, because it's the paths I go to, they sit on a riverfront. They kind of circle it in a lot of ways, because you can cross bridges, and they're really quite nice to explore if you have the time and if the weather permits it. Here lately, the weather has been so cold out, but the last couple days or so, the weather's been nice. But again, because of work, I've not been able to go and do this. But typically, when I'm able to go do this, I will take my vape cartridge with me, take a couple hits, go either run, walk on these trails and what have you. And I'm usually gone for at least an hour, if not two, and then by that time, those hits, they've ran their course, and I'm capable of driving once again, because I don't condone anyone driving while they're high, because it's technically illegal. So, and I am not a promoter of illegal actions. You gotta do these things responsibly, and that's a lot of reason why they haven't decriminalized it, because I don't think people would be responsible for it. But I think our government, state and local governments, federal governments, anyone, all the branches that kind of regulate the cannabis in this country, they need to get out of that old way of thinking and realize there's a vast majority of people, more than I know, they know, probably than anyone knows out there, that would use this and use it responsibly. Because there's a lot of people that regardless of what you think about alcohol, there are people that drink responsibly. I had a time where I didn't drink responsibly when I used to drink. And by drink, I mean like drink regularly. There's a time I didn't do it responsibly. There's been time where I haven't used marijuana responsibly either. But like both these things, I feel there's you kind of mature as you do them, especially with age. You just mature over time, and you start using these things responsibly because you realize how much harm can be done if they're not used responsibly. What harm can be done. So there's always that looming over their heads to think that people aren't getting used responsibly, but they got to realize that it's different times now, and there's a lot of people that advocate for responsible use of marijuana. There's definitely people who advocate for responsible use of alcohol, and regardless of how many people advocate for responsibility while drinking, there's still people who drink and drive who use it irresponsibly. And probably the primary difference between the two is that when that happens with alcohol, really bad things tend to happen. Whereas with marijuana, I've never really heard of it, like terrible things happening. I haven't heard people getting into car wrecks and stuff. Now, the ones I've had, it's been a mixture of either marijuana, alcohol, other substances. It's been a mixture. It's never just been like, bam, yes, marijuana causes. It was 100% because they were on marijuana. Because I just don't think there's anything out there to support that. I really don't. And I have never, and it's not like I extensively go out there looking for it. I don't go out there looking for it, but no one's presented me with it either. No one's came to me with any type of evidence of that. So I definitely think, like I've always stated, they need to reevaluate cannabis in this country on all levels. They really need to make it federally legal. That way, regardless what state you're in, if they make it federally legal, then it's legal for everyone. From my understanding, that is. Now, if they do it by the way that most people think they're going to do, they're going to make it state regulated, which is good for the states that are like kind of pro-cannabis and bad for those who aren't quite pro-cannabis. The state I live in, the people that are in charge of this are not very pro-cannabis. I think they're pros in the aspects of how much money it can make, at least on the medical side, hence why it's only medically legal. But they don't want that an outpour if what could happen if it was recreationally legal and decriminalized and all that. I think for a lot of people, it feeds a lot of jobs, and not because of like cops dealing drugs or anything, just sheer fact that the arrests alone for petty crimes pertaining to marijuana, they bring in a lot of money. And, that can't be argued. That's like a known fact that stuff like that brings in a lot of money. We've had cases, not even related to marijuana, where towns in the state I live in have done like illegal speed traps where certain towns were getting like way above normal, giving out way above normal ticket occurrences. And it's because of the sheer fact they were they're trying to get money into the police department, their city, and everything to fund things. And that was brought to light, and that's it's very well known. What city it is, I couldn't tell you, and even if it did, I probably wouldn't say anything about it. But you can look this up. I mean, it's well known. So, I mean, I think for financial reasons, that's why a lot of people want to keep, not make it federally legal, keep it where it still brings in something for them. And that's just, again, like, old way of thinking, in my opinion. But, you know, hopefully it goes the way everyone goes, and it becomes federally decriminalized, and we can move forward as far as when that happens. Now, will it get to that point? Probably not, but I think in time, and hopefully in my time, that I'll see it federally decriminalized, and I think the world, at least our country, maybe not the world, but our country will be better for this. And with that, everyone, I am going to bid you good day, because that's the episode. That's why we're going to leave the episode. But as always, I'm going to ask you, if you are listening to this in audio form, please leave us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts. If you're watching this on YouTube, click that subscribe button, give the video a thumbs up, and give me a comment. Leave a comment on your thoughts on anything that I have on this strain, my thoughts on the decriminalization of medical marijuana. Comments on anything. I would love to hear from you. I was looking at the demographics, at least for the audio portion of the podcast. We have mostly people listening in America, in which I don't have a lot of listeners as it is, but, you know, at least I have enough out there to get demographics. And mostly in America, but we got some people, like I've stated before, in Canada. But I also noticed we got some people listening in Germany. So I want to give shout outs to all the Germans out there. I've been to your country. I've lived in your country. It's a great country. So shout outs to them. Shout outs to the Canada audience. Shout outs to the American audience. Shout outs to anyone who just listens to this podcast. I enjoy doing it, and I hope you enjoy it as well. And we'll see you in the next episode. Take care and have a good rest of your day.
Thanks for listening.